Okay, I think we're live. I'm not sure because we're kind of flying a little bit blind here tonight, but we're close. We're closer to being how we used to be. All right, so let's see. You know, I thought I'd go ahead and show you guys a clip of what's coming up tonight because something peculiar is happening, particularly in the world with the U.S. and all this stuff that's happening around the world. We just apparently made Israel and Iraq happy. Do you believe it? I don't. This is what Bledsoe recently said just last week. This is really weird. Now listen to what he says here.
What she said was there will be, when we see Israel and Iran doing their thing and the orbs begin to appear, from that point forward, they're going to begin to awaken the people, and there was no stopping it. And if we went to war, they would stop it.
So you believe from what you've been told, which obviously you can't know for sure, you're only being told this, but you believe from what you're being told that the entities, the beings, are going to intervene to stop us from killing ourselves.
They did that during November, on television.
And disclosure of the fact of a non-human intelligence.
It'll come next year.
Something's talking to this guy, and we can't obviously take it for truth because these things are lying spirits, but I truly believe he's talking to some other realm, some demonic realm that's going on here. We're going to get into that and understand exactly what he's doing here. But did you realize that just today we apparently stopped the war? This is what happened. Listen.
Breaking news coming just now. Joining us this evening, Vice President J.D. Vance. Mr. Vice President, thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Just seconds ago, the President went to Truth Social and typed this. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire. Complete and total ceasefire is what he typed.
Yep.
What does that mean? How did it come about? What's the development here?
All right. Well, we're gonna wait. We're gonna talk about that here in just a second. But I got one more clip for you guys, and this is from. Oh, I didn't resize it. Oh well. This is what they are thinking is actually happening. Is we're starting a proxy war. That's what's gonna happen because this is the decade for all kinds of proxy wars. Apparently,
the foreign minister of Iran is going to Russia today. And ahead of that meeting, the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, says this: the enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. A number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. That is just off the charts crazy.
Today,
okay, just off the charts crazy. We're going to talk about this tonight because all this stuff really pertains to our livelihood, our future. Actually, let's see. I hope not long future on earth here, and our potential to go home, go to heaven, get out of this place because it's going to be a wild ride to get out. That's for sure. The enemy's not going to want to just relinquish control of what he thinks is his own, us. We need to stay in Christ. That's the only way. But let's talk a little bit about Bledsoe tonight because he said some pretty wild things about the war just now, and I hit a lot more too. And so we're going to get into that. I'm going to check and see if we're live, and otherwise I got to do this whole thing again. And we'll be right back after this.
The system is totally rigged and broken.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the SA. My gosh.
Demon spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of 5 distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet.
It is now 89 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been.
I still think these are what people call angels. I'm dying to know what they've got to say.
very severe suffering brings them.
These entities have the ability to appear in any form.
Welcome to Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what is going on. And there's a lot going on, so you better hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon so you're notified when things like this happen. You can see me. I'm all over the place over here. I'm pulling stuff up because I just realized I don't have my main notes up and to be able to share my screen here. Luckily, everything's coming together, and we're going to be able to do a great show tonight. By the way, if you haven't already, I forgot to bring that tab up. That's what I forgot to do. Just a second. If you go to strangenormal.org, I want to show you this real quick. This is what you want to do. If you go down here, you can see that it says, hey, read this book online. You can click on that book and read exactly what we're talking about, or you can click down below it where it says click here to I can't read backwards apparently, request free copies of this sharing booklet, and you can request a whole lot of copies. In fact, I've mailed out this last week, actually no, I have them in my car. I'm going to mail them out tomorrow. They're about 2,600 copies of this. I have 10,000 booklets, so that's nothing. But we're going to get 26,000 booklets out, and that's going to be fantastic because more people need to know about this, especially those who don't go on YouTube to watch this stuff and understand what's happening here. Maybe they're readers, they're learners by readers, or they're learners by preachers. You know, I've been going around the nation talking about this quite a bit, but this is exciting because this is going to reach a whole different group of people that really learn by reading. And so if you want one of these, or 20 of them, or 50 of them, people have been emailing me. That's great. You can still do that, but it's much easier for me now if you go and click on that link on the website and fill out the form, because it asks you things like, what's your address? You wouldn't believe how many people email me and say, hey, I want 50 booklets. Hey, I want 300 booklets, and they don't give me their address. So, and if that's you, it's okay. I email you back and I say, hey, what is your address? But you're going to want some of these because this is the way we can share what is going on before it breaks upon this world, because we have a chance to get ahead of this before something bad happens, something really exciting happens, because Satan's been making this whole alien UFO thing kind of the trash can of spiritualism, so that when people talk about it, it's kind of just pushed away like you're crazy, if you understand what I'm saying. And I've been people have come up to me and said, oh, you know what? We need to talk about this. And they end up leaving saying, okay, you might have a point here because I have the material and because I've studied this. And that is all in here. So if someone come up to you and they're going to be like, hey, that thing you mentioned, come on. Just hand them one of these. That's all you have to do. You don't have to even explain anything to it, because it's got 6 main points. The first half is hey, this is what the Bible prophecy says, and it's for the church, for the Seventh-day Adventist Church right now. We're going to empower the church first before we go out and do some outreach. Inreach first, outreach next. And the second half of this is current events, what is happening. So you're going to want one of these. I'm going to email them more out, but we have General Conference coming up, which is the main reason I collected these. So, ordered these. And so I'm going to get as many out as I can, and I'm going to bring the rest and give to people that say, hey, I recognize you. I say, here's a bundle of 20. Go and people, if people talk to you about it, tell people about it. Don't litter. You know, the GC is going to be watching for people, GC session is going to be watching for people that are doing things that are a little under the radar. Because, to be honest with you, the church kind of does that. It hands out things with covers that don't look like a book that it should, and which is fine. It gets into the hands, but people kind of know that now, and so they're looking for Jesuits, they're looking for Branch Davidians, they're looking for Shepherd's Rod, they're looking for people that are going to present things that the church doesn't agree with. And I don't want to be classified because this is what the church believes. They just don't know it's in their material yet because it's gone over their head. It went over my head. So I want to make sure that we're doing everything correct. We're not just, littering, putting these things in where they shouldn't be or forcing them on people. This is a sharing thing for people that are interested in it, not for forcing or saying, hey, you want to read this. It's a really good book. There's nothing about it. In fact, if you want to read it before you go hand it out, go online. Go to strangenormal.org, click on that image of the book, read it. It's free, and then order some because you're going to want to after you read it. Okay, commercial over. By the way, donations are appreciated because it costs money to do this. And so if you do get a sum, I'm going to have a little thing in there that says, hey, you can donate this way if you're willing, because this is how we get it out to even the people that can't afford to donate, is by giving it away for free. That's the way you do it. Okay, so what are we doing here? Well, let's dig into this real quick because there's lots happening. Ross Coulthart, you might see me look over here. Normally I'm looking up, but I have my stand over here. I'd show you guys sometime. But Ross Coulthart, he interviewed Chris Bledsoe at this huge UFO festival in the United States, and he was a little giddy and excited about it because he hasn't actually talked to the guy who talks to these fireballs in the sky. And he says, you know what? He wrote a book called UFO of God. He says that they come when I pray, and primarily they appear to me as the lady, which portrays herself as the Egyptian goddess Hathor. And so he's going to be talking a little bit about that. There's going to be a little bit of a review here as we go into this, but I'm going to really hash this out a little bit, and you're going to hear new things out of what he said, because some of the things he said about war just blew my mind, especially since we are finished with war. They call it the 12-day war. We're done. We fixed it. Just like Pearl Harbor. When they did that, we sent a bomb over and we fixed it. And I don't think that's how Iraq's going to work. That might be one culture. That's not Iraq. We're going to see what happens next here. Let's play this first clip, which is kind of an intro to what's going on. Hopefully that's the first clip. We'll see.
We've got an interview I've been looking forward to for years. Chris Bledsoe. He's a man from North Carolina, a former construction contractor and a deeply religious family man whose life took a dramatic turn following a profound experience in 2007. Born and raised in the American South, Chris built a successful career in the construction industry and raised 4 children with his wife Yvonne, grounded in a strong Christian faith. By 2007, however, he faced severe challenges. The financial crisis had decimated his business, and he battled debilitating Crohn's disease, pushing him to the brink of despair. On January the 8th, 2007, while fishing along the Cape Fear River with his sons and 3 colleagues, Chris was overwhelmed and stepped away to pray. He claims a UFO appeared, accompanied by orbs of light, and he experienced 4 hours of missing time. During this encounter, he says he was miraculously healed of Crohn's disease.
I'm going to pause it right here just for a second. He didn't claim, as far as I understand, and I haven't read his UFO of God book yet, but he talks about fiery orbs. He doesn't talk about machines that look cylindrical like UFOs of Hollywood. And so let's continue.
And began experiencing ongoing interactions with what he describes as angelic entities, including a figure he calls the Lady, a divine feminine presence linked to figures like the Egyptian goddess Hathor or the Virgin Mary. These beings, Chris asserts, communicate messages of love, spiritual awakening and environmental urgency.
I was crying out to heaven and UFOs came. That's why the book's named UFO of God.
So do you think, I mean, it's interesting, I've got many religious friends, and I was having a conversation with one of them the other day, and she teases me that I talk about UFOs and think that they're possibly extraterrestrial or aliens or something like that. She thinks they're angels. And when I asked her what these angels look like, she said they're orbs.
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably what they are, although I don't know. In a court of law, I couldn't tell you that I'm for sure of anything, but I can tell you that they come with prayer. When I say a prayer, that's when they come.
So Chris Bledsoe, who this is what this is, you can go watch him on podcasts about 3 or 4 hours long of him talking about this, or I'm sure even his book. I might do a review of his book because it's very strange, and it's obvious to a Christian what this is, because Hathor is an Egyptian goddess. There's no goddess in the Godhead in heaven, and so if you say Hathor is the goddess of sex and sensuality, and so this is obviously a demonic deception to Christian. But the interesting thing is, Chris was a Christian at one time. He was the deacon at his Baptist or Presbyterian church, and so he left that because the experience changed him emotionally, healed his diseases, and told them that they were his creator, his God. Imagine you're the one you think is the most devoted Christian, and they are the most they are the deacon of your church, the head deacon, your pastor even, and they have an experience that changes them, and they leave the church. They take many people with them. This is ridiculous. This is what's happening, and so this is what I believe is going to be some major things. And I found it, and I put it in this book. So order that. It's you can get it for free right now. So but this is not all. This whole thing comes about usually by traumatic experiences and near-death experiences. Where have we heard that before? I'll give you a clue after this clip. Watch this.
This is actually very important. This is something I'm noticing. A lot of people who are having this brush with the phenomenon,
right,
they often describe dying, near-death experiences.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize before you actually had a near-death experience. What happened?
I had two. When I was 10 years old, I was shot with a shotgun, point blank, 6 foot away, blew a hole in my back that big.
Did you die?
Well, I thought I was dead.
Did you have that light down the tunnel experience?
No, what happened was when I woke up, I was in the hospital. It was a farmer that took me to the hospital. This was in 1972. There wasn't much way. Back then I was down in the woods. I got shot. He took me to the hospital, and I thought the whole time I was dead. It was traumatic for a little 10-year-old with a gunshot, and I'm bleeding to death.
Sure.
So when I woke up, it was after surgery, and it was on a cold metal table where they x-ray you. They kept taking me in and out of surgery to look for more lead. They didn't have this stuff then. But the last time they did it, I woke up, and I saw my mother looking through a window at me. But my memory was of being inside of something in outer space, looking back at Earth from a distance.
So you had that out-of-body experience?
Yeah.
It's a very common thing. Have you met other people who've had near-death experiences?
Yes, a lot.
It's a very common thing, isn't it?
Yep. And believe it or not, something I found, Ross, pattern. And I have 18 years worth of data, and thousands of people write me. I have 20,000 emails I haven't even opened yet. That's how many people are writing. But they want to tell me their story. And all of them, just about all, will always, if you start digging into what was your life like when you saw that orb. This lady, Miss John, she's 80. She calls me. I hear you're the guy that knows about these lights. I said, that would be me. How can I help you? She's like, well, I was standing at my kitchen sink, and this ball of light came by my window, scared me to death, and all this. And I'm like, Miss John, what was happening to you when that happened in your life? She said, well, my husband died the week before, there you go. It's always that way. It's trauma, near death, or some suffering, PTSD, that brings these things. That's the common pattern.
It's the common pattern to see these things when disaster happens. Can you think of disasters in the Bible that are coming up soon? I do. And so there seems to be some rules of engagement or something that these things have been told that they can start appearing at, and they're chomping at the bit. Every time there is something that is disastrous in someone's life, and if they're nearby, they're excited to appear and tell someone about it. So what I'm thinking is going on here is something is happening. Something is going to happen traumatic in the world, whether it be a nuclear explosion in the world, in the U.S., in NATO countries somewhere, something to do with that would make the world get into a huge, huge world war. And then those people that lose people start to see people. And the message goes out. Our friends from heaven are here. He's already saying that these things are heavenly beings. And that's exactly what is said in the Great Controversy. Let me show you real quick what I'm seeing. I'm going to bring it over to my screen, which you probably won't be able to see if you're on a mobile. But let's see. Yeah, that's going to be difficult to hold my microphone and actually do this. Okay, so when they have been led to believe that they'd actually return to communicate with them, Satan causes those who went into the grave unprepared. They claim to be happy in heaven and to occupy exalted positions there, and that error is widely taught that there is no difference between the righteous and the wicked. The pretended visitants from the world of the spirits. What? There it is again. The pretended visitants from the world of the spirits sometimes utter cautions and warnings, which prove to be correct, and then confidence is gained. They present doctrines that directly undermine the scriptures. That's Great Controversy 552. But that's not the only place she mentions that. She actually, in 556, she mentions that this is how the Hebrews were deceived. In the days of the Hebrews, there was a class of people who claimed, as do the spiritualists today, to hold communion with the dead. But the familiar spirits, as these visitants from other worlds were called. Now, in the first thing, she said the pretended visitants from other worlds. I assume she's also saying the pretended visitants, but she's essentially saying the same thing a little different here, saying the visitants from other worlds were called. In other words, they weren't really that, but they were calling themselves that. So it's interesting that, and I have more quotes I'll show you a little bit later on, but they eventually start to believe that these things are your departed relatives. And what's fascinating to me is that they don't even have to appear as your departed relatives. I'm sure they will eventually, but people are already believing they're your departed relatives, and they're not even appearing. They're just balls of light. That's what's really crazy right now. What is going on here? So that's not the only thing I want to show you here, but we're on, let's see, clip 5. I'm going to go to Roger Murnau. This is that entire clip that I play regularly, but I want you to listen to what he says after he tells what the priests tell him about this thing. Listen.
And the priest told us, we talked quite a while, and then he said, could I have a little bit more of your time? I want to do something very fascinating. He says the grain plain, the master's grain plain, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of the spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plain is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because it says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it.
Okay, now listen to what he says next. We've heard that over and over again, that demons present themselves as ET. But then he says, how will this whole thing start?
And he went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences.
All right, so they were claimed to have out-of-body experiences. That's essentially near-death experience, out-of-body experience. That's what he just said. When Bledsoe said that he was on, as a 10-year-old boy, he was on the table and he saw himself on the table and he had gunshot wounds in him. That was what he called a near-death experience, but it's also what he called an OBE, out-of-body experience, where you see yourself on a table. Now, is that biblical? There's nothing in the Bible that talks about OBEs. Show me if you want. Comment on this if you know where that is, because it's not. This is kind of like a projection of what demonic entities are seeing into your head. Imagine there's a floating being above you and they're projecting what they're seeing. You on a table, in the bed, in a chair, whatever it is. This is the same way remote viewing works. Somehow they're transmitting that what they're looking at into your mind. That's how they're able to go through all the files in the Pentagon or these secret areas and the government's supposed to be able to remote view. That was a real thing, by the way, remote viewing for the government, and they say they don't do it anymore, but yeah, right. So if they are doing this stuff, this is a demonic thing. This is not normal. This is a strange normal. Anyway, let's move back into this. You know, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of step back and understand his whole story from a world view here, a global view. See the whole picture. Let's go back to the river encounter of this first one and find out what they showed him. What in Egypt they actually saw. He actually goes into that a little bit. So let's see, that's clip 6. Here we go.
So there was a period of 4 hours in that first encounter on the Cape Fear River that you can't account for. Do you have any recollection at all about what happened?
The only thing I can tell you, the memories that I do have are fragmented, but it was basically a virtual tour. It felt like I was in an orb or some sort of round, whatever these things are.
So you were taken on board a craft?
Taken on board something, and I was being shown, the first thing I saw was Egypt. Why Egypt? I don't know, but they showed me the pyramids and the Sphinx, and they showed me Hathor's temple. I saw the inscriptions of birds and animals as their deities. This is what they're putting in my head.
Now, Hathor was a minx. She's the Egyptian goddess of sensuality and sex.
Right.
I mean, she's a beautiful goddess.
Right.
Why do you think, if that's true, why do you think an Egyptian goddess was the theme of whatever it was that you were being shown?
Well, it wasn't only that. She showed me other things, or this after the lady came onto the scene. There were other deities like Hathor or Demeter or Diana or the Virgin Mary. She goes back.
Are you guys making note of that? He said, what did he say? Some of these I haven't even heard of before. Hathor, Demeter. What is Demeter? I got to go back and actually look at my history on what that is.
Other deities like Hathor or Demeter or Diana or the Virgin Mary. She goes by many names, but Hathor is just a name. It's God from the ancient Egyptians. That's what they called her.
But what was the purpose? Like, okay, I'm just devil's advocating. I'm being cold, rational.
Right.
Why would, let's call it an interdimensional entity, or let's call it a God creator, even if it is. Why would they engage with Chris Bledsoe even when you're down at your lowest point in your life? What was the intention?
I have no clue. I have no idea.
Thank you for your candor.
Yeah.
All right, let's pause right there for a second. And I'm reminded, and thank you for in the chat. Every once in a while, I look in the chat to see if there's anything I've forgotten. I appreciate you guys. By the way, Judy says that was that clip of Roger Minot was recorded in the 80s, and it was from a story in his life when he was 20 years old. So that must have been 30s, 40s, I don't know, when he was a long time ago. And so while he was having that occultic experience where they were trying to groom him into the cult, the satanic priest was definitely trying to say, hey, look, by the way, we got this. Let me tell you about the amazing things that they're doing here. And one of them was how they're going to gather in the group, the crop, into Satan's grasp at the end of time. The grain plain, as Roger Monroe says in his thick French accent. He was French-Canadian in Montreal, Canada. And so that is very interesting. And so he's but let's pop it back over to what we were talking about here. They showed him Egypt, Hathor's temple, a couple different, he said that woman went by many different names. Some of them I haven't even heard of. I'm going to have to research that a little bit. Hathor, she was the goddess of sex, sensuality, not necessarily a creator god, because we know that eventually these things are going to say that they have been creating us, because the lore behind this whole UFO thing is that things came from another planet and they couldn't create on their own planet because it's been banned, so they created by mixing their DNA and plopped us, and have been watching our evolution ever since. That's and so when they come back, they'll say, oh yeah, we created you, and you can too. And in fact, we're very equal because we have the same DNA. Essentially, you are gods, just like we are. It's the same life since Genesis 3. And so she's gone by many names, and she was the goddess, or one of the goddesses of Egypt. Well, we know in the Bible that the gods of Egypt, plural, because there were many of them, were not good. There's only one God, and that's good, and that's God the Father. That's the Trinity, the Godhead. I do believe in the Trinity. We're not going to go there tonight. And there is very much information, lots of information that shows that this, in the Bible, that shows that God was very, very upset with the gods, lowercase gods, essentially fallen angels that had presented themselves as gods for Egypt. And so he went to great lengths to try to bring his people back and out of their grasp and show them politely, hey, by the way, I'm above your gods, so worship me instead. And he led them out of Egypt. Unfortunately, by the 10th plague, the firstborn had to die. So it shows how hard the hearts are of the Egyptians. And in fact, some Egyptians came with them. That was the mixed multitude. But Pharaoh, the leadership, they eventually had to die, not because of at the hands of the Israelites, but because they tried to venture across the opening of the Red Sea, and it destroyed them when it came back down upon them. So why in the world is this thing now communicating with Chris Bledsoe? Well, it's because we're hitting the end of time. I mean, let's just lay it out like it is. That's why. And that's why you need to order this booklet, so you can talk about it. I keep saying order. I'm giving this away for free. It's all been donated through your donations. This is like a PBS broadcast. What do they always say? Funding for this program has provided by the Corporation of Public Broadcasting by viewers like you. Well, the truth is that second half is true. This has been provided by donations, and you need to grab some of these before they're out. And I need to order some more, so you can tell more people about it. So why do they communicate with you? Not you, but why do they communicate with him? Well, let's watch that clip and see exactly why.
Do you have any sense as to why these beings decided to communicate with you?
I don't know. But the thing I can do and have done is proven it.
And how do you do that?
I'll take you out and show it to you.
I'd love to come anytime.
We can do that.
Yeah. What do they tell you?
Well, there's a message that comes rarely, or there's an ongoing, basically an ongoing relationship. So if I'm going to meet...
This guy's leading a cult. I'm just amazed at how many people, the B-roll, this is called B-roll, when you have extra footage that doesn't have audio with it. It's just there to support his story. Look at all those people behind him. I mean, he leads people out here to watch these fireballs at night and talks about it. And he says, all I do is pray to them and they come to me.
An ongoing relationship. So if I'm going to meet Ross Cohart and I'm agonizing, should I go on his show? Will it turn out right? Should I do it? I always go out and I ask the heavens. I ask the lady, Is this what I should do?
So the lady gave me a green card.
So so I wait for them to communicate with me, and if they say yes, that's what I do. And it's a daily, everything in my life I use.
Is there ever any verbal communication or telepathic communication?
Telepathic, yes.
So,
that's how they come. They don't comment when we're not talking to them.
Right. So what other things are they telling you in a broad sense about humanity?
That, I'll tell you what they told me recently was, and I put this in writing to the Pentagon in 2012 when I told this, okay? And I've told it in my book, and I've told it many times in the last 12 years. One thing she told me was, when you see Iran and Israel exchanging missiles, and I saw it, the way she tells me is a vision of, I see it like a living picture screen. I could see the rockets flying. Then all of a sudden, orbs appeared out of the ocean and everywhere. And I told the government, that's, if this happens, the orbs are going to appear and wake people up and stop it. That's what she told me.
Oh boy. Well, this is what we've been surmising for quite a while now, according to UFO lore, according to the narrative. I call the narrative the lie that has been told through all these UFO evangelists for a long time. I was never a UFO guy. This is boy. If I thought I was going to be talking about UFOs on the internet to the public, to my friends, to my elementary school friends, even from 5 years ago, I'd be like, I'd laugh at your face. But when it combines with Bible prophecy, I got to say something about it because I can't get anybody else to talk about it. I've tried to go on even big ministry programs, and they're like, nope, I'm not going to touch that. I'm not going to touch that. And I think it's probably because it's too weird. It's too strange. They don't want to talk about it because they're worried about losing donations. So I think what's going on here, though, is he's been selected somehow to be the front man of this stuff, and they've told him that. They said, we're going to use you to reveal us to the world. Go tell the world about us. And so what he's saying right now that they told him was that if there is a big conflict that happens, these things are going to pop out and stop it. Wouldn't that be the perfect scenario? I mean, think about this for a second. Wouldn't that be the perfect scenario to prove, I'm using my finger quotes for those listening, to prove that these things are good? Oh, it's a good thing. They saved us from nuclear Armageddon. Don't you want these things to help you? And by the way, they're telling us good things about our friends in heaven. They're telling us good things about the church. I have quotes to back that up. I think from GC or somewhere, but I'll have to pull that out in a second. But he is definitely been selected to talk about this because he's willing to. I'm sure he's getting paid to do it too. Why? So why do they communicate with him? He said that when they see Iran and Israel, these things will wake the people up. Well, we began to see Iran and Israel, and I didn't see any orbs, although it was kind of hard to tell what was a missile and what was an orb because they just appear identical sometimes, except the orbs don't explode, I don't think. But I do think that there are going to be big things that happen. And because it takes a long time to get from one area to another, we saw how long it took from Iraq to shoot those missiles from one area to Israel. I mean, people were able to look up in the sky and go, "Oh, look! Well, there's a barrage of missiles coming at Israel right now from Lebanon or wherever." I don't know my geography, but if you go back to the previous video on the videos tab of this YouTube channel, I did a video about World War III and what was going on over there. It's very interesting because they were trying to say that we need to help Israel because the Bible says that. That's not how prophecy works. Prophecy wasn't saying Israel. We need to help Israel because the Bible says so. The Bible talks about Israel as being us. We are grafted in to the original plan. The group that was going out to evangelize the rest of the world was Israel, and we are to be priests unto nations to go out and preach the truth about God. We are essentially spiritual Israel. That's essentially the term for it. Grafted in. That concept is fully Christian. This is not a niche concept. Grafting in is what Christ talks about the whole time. If we weren't grafted in, it would only be Israel. My father was Abraham, so I'm going to heaven. This would be a real thing if that was true. All right, we're off on a rabbit trail now. I'm sure you guys are woken up. But I'm seeing people saying things about 2025, 2026, 2027. Lots is happening here. These things are lying spirits, so I take this with a grain of salt, but they are saying a lot of things about 2026 and 2027. 2025 has come out because it's been in a lot of Alice Bailey's writings, and that was a long time ago. And so they're just finite beings just like we are. They just live longer and they're smarter, but they probably have a little hard time getting the exact date right because they don't know, they aren't God, and they're not able to say, well, it's going to happen on this date, because things get bumped up according to our choices. It has to go along with choice because we are allowed that, since this is a big court case in heaven. So anyway, another rabbit trail. But that's what's happening when they communicate with this guy, and he's telling him that this is the plan. That we're seeing a crack in the communication of the spiritual realm right now, and we're seeing what they want to happen, regardless of the date it happens or how it happens. What they essentially want to happen is they want to present themselves as the good guy. We've been watching you for a long time, and we're going to save you from yourselves. We are very unhappy with how you are doing things on earth. Even though they instigated it and they put the words and the ideas and everything in these leaders to fight amongst themselves, they're still going to try to stop it and make themselves look like the good guy. That's what they want to do. So that's kind of the timeline. So let's go further into this apocalypse idea, because I think it's worth our time to really hash out what he's saying about this whole thing. Watch this.
You've spoken of an apocalypse or global upheaval predicted by the entities, particularly after you had an Easter encounter in 2019.
Right.
What specific warnings or timelines have they shared? And before you answer this question, I just say to people out there, there's so much misreporting.
Yeah.
So you're about to say what you've been told. I've done something similar recently. I recently said that people have talked to me about 2027. And I noticed social media exploded with Coulthard says apocalypse, doomsday coming in 2027. Right. And it's so funny because all I'm doing as a journalist is reporting what people are telling me. I have no way of knowing if it's true or not. I'm just a journo. You purport to be able to communicate with these non-human beings, or whatever they are, gods, beings. What are they telling you about apocalyptic events?
What they told me, and again I put this in writing, back in 2012, I handed it to Timothy Taylor, which he took to NASA, to the Pentagon. That's how the chain of command went. In that, I told him about the orbs and the drones and the rockets. I didn't say drones, but the orbs and the missiles, which just happened. And we talked about all the other things that they told me. One of them was, they didn't say it was an apocalypse, that's funny. What she said was, there will be, when we see Israel and Iran doing their thing and the orbs begin to appear, from that point forward, they're going to begin to awaken the people, and there was no stopping it. And if we went to war, they would stop it.
So you believe from what you've been told, which obviously you can't know for sure, you're only being told this, but you believe from what you're being told that the entities, the beings, are going to intervene to stop us from killing ourselves.
They did that during November, on television.
And disclosure of the fact of a non-human intelligence.
It'll come next year.
You believe next year?
I'm sure. I feel sure.
Man, this is going to be a very short channel. I don't believe that this is the only time we're going to hear this, but or I guess I should say this is going to be a very short lived time for this guy's TV time if nothing happens, if it's a nothing burger next year, because he's convinced that 2026 something is happening, and 2027 something big is happening. And so let's continue to hear what he has to say.
I think the government has got to. They have no choice. Because when these orbs appeared, and it showed them that I was in D.C. and I heard some of the conversation when they said, oh my God, this is catastrophic. If we don't tell it now, they may come back in 2026 and land. And if they do that, we just lost the control of our country.
But it's interesting. It's funny you should say that, because if that's what they're deluding themselves with, nothing would undermine public confidence in government more than for government. I mean, they outright lie. I mean, I can say this with absolute confidence.
Sure.
The government is lying to the public about non-human intelligence.
Well, let's don't say government, because that's a big word, right? It's
Sure.
Millions of people. But I think the DOD is protecting our borders.
But do you think the rationale for why they say we've got to keep it secret makes sense?
No. Other than they're hoarding the technology that they're getting from this, but they're forced to tell it now. They just coined a new term called catastrophic disclosure, and that is if they come here and land, and we've lied about it, they got egg on their face, and they would lose confidence of the people. The whole world would. So they're speeding up this disclosure because this April date might just have something come back here and land and get out.
April 2026.
Yeah.
And okay, you've put yourself in it there, Chris.
It's
because
okay. It's okay.
It's going to be Chris Bledsoe says April 2026 is when it all happens.
Well, no, I said this in my book, so let's revert back to my
Sure.
book. And my book clearly states what Chris said, is the lady explained to me that in April of 26, there would be an alignment where this star, which is a blue star, of Regulus appears on the horizon in front of the Sphinx, and it would be red.
And you know what? This is right.
That's what she
I've
said.
actually spoken to astronomers. This is the phenomenal thing about this.
Yeah, and she said it'll be red. And when that happens, it would mark a shift into a new knowledge, not an apocalypse. That's what she told me. It doesn't mean Jesus is coming back. There's a new knowledge that's coming. What is that? Is it under the pyramids they've discovered something? Is it the Hall of Records? Is it disclosure?
All right, so this is interesting. I got to talk a little bit about this. He is saying that something big is happening in 2026. He isn't not sure what it is. And when he says land, we got to get the idea of these ships, these round metal saucer-type ships landing, because he's saying, no. What we're seeing is these fiery round balls that land. And if you think back on this for a second. What did the star over Bethlehem look like that was moving? Looked like it was a group of angels, but it looked like a small round glowing star. What does Revelation call these things? Well, it says a third of the stars of heaven was swept out of heaven, cast to the earth with the dragon, Satan, that snake of old. So you got to think about this for a second and say, these round things, what are they? If you go back, I did a in the exclusive sections, I won't tell you which one, but one of the well-known pastors in the United States, I did an interview with him, and I asked him pretty softball questions. But one of the things he said that really surprised me was he said, I don't know if these things have a round protective bubble around them or what, but something is peculiar about the roundness, the round idea and angelic entities. But moving on from that, I don't want to speculate too much because that's not biblical to speculate. But I do believe that we need to think about the biblical ideas about this and understand what it is in Bible prophecy that is going on here. That was the timeline, the apocalypse. He says it wasn't an apocalypse. He says something is going to happen, a change in knowledge by April of 2026. We'll see what happens. These things are lying spirits. But it has something to do with Israel and Iran. So I don't think we're out of the woods with the war yet, even though they say it's a 12-day war. We fixed it. Boy, that's arrogant. I don't think so at all. We'll see. All right. So where was he? Where did he come from? What church was he in? And why did people dislike his ideas? Well, I think we kind of have an idea of that, but I want to hear it from his own words. Here's what he says.
You've spoken of an apocalypse or global upheaval. Is your religion the Catholic faith?
No, I was born and raised a Baptist.
A Baptist?
Yeah.
What do you think of these claims that the Catholic Church knows a lot more than it's letting on?
I'm pretty sure they do. I think that they have ancient writings with a whole lot more descriptions about what they were seeing that we could read and determine something from. So.
All right. So he says that, isn't that interesting? That he says the Catholic faith knows more about this than they are letting on. I believe they do. We're going to see more and more about that because this Pope is very interested not only in the work aspect of things, but also in tying in spiritualism. Because Pope Leo XIII was very into spiritualistic ideas. And so Pope Leo XIV, he took the name Pope Leo because he apparently really likes that Pope, is going to go on the same route. If you've been following this idea and the laws that are going to be presented to force worship, then you understand what I'm saying. I have a whole episode on the Vatican and how it ties into this. You'll have to go back and watch that. But that's what they said about the religion. He was a Pentecostal holiness religion, which is interesting. And so he asked them now, are they demonic? I mean, asking the most pertinent questions, I think.
How have these experiences that your family has endured or gone through, how have they affected your family life? Has it been a positive experience?
No, it was the worst. It was the worst. The first 5 years was terrible.
Why?
Because when I reported it, my wife and I married a Pentecostal holiness, which is more conservative, right, than a Baptist. And her family is the conference. They started the whole thing, so I didn't have...
In fact, they thought what you were going through was demonic, didn't they?
Well, they thought it was the devil, right? I come home talking about this. I saw these things, and I don't have Crohn's. Well, you were playing with the devil, and next thing I know, I'm being pulled at by every direction, and my children were trying to be separated. They called Child Protective Services on me.
Wow.
To try to take my children out of the home because they thought I was bringing the devil.
Did the Child Protective Services treat you leniently and carefully?
They came and my children stood right there and told them that their daddy was, he wasn't bad for them. So basically they went to bat.
Is it true your church, the Baptist church, did an exorcism on your family?
Well, they would bring holy water, and the Pentecostal church. They come flashing holy water and sprinkling it all around my yard and on me and everything else.
But the entities kept on coming.
Yeah, they never left. They're still there.
They weren't leaving. They moved in.
Isn't that interesting? Let's talk about that for a while. So I don't know if the Baptist church has holy water. That's kind of a Catholic thing, but they definitely tried to perform an exorcist on his family, and it didn't work. I've been digging deep into the idea of what the Bible says. The Bible says we should cast out demons. And there is a couple of ministries, even around here, that have been to other countries. They have missionaries in other countries, and they have the ability, or they say they do, to cast out demonic entities. In fact, tomorrow morning, it's not going to be live, but tomorrow morning I'm interviewing a missionary that has cast out demons, and he has a whole book dealing with this stuff. And it's very, very interesting. Are they playing games, or is it actually happening? Hey, don't message me right now, whoever that is. But what's happening? So I think what's interesting is that we're going to get to the bottom of this, but I have to do my research as well, and I hope you guys can come along with me and try to figure this out. And I love your comments, by the way. I watch them all, so make sure you comment on that video when it comes out. GC is coming up. This isn't the end of the show. I'm going to show you more, but the general conference session is coming up. I'm not going to be able to do live shows every weekend for at least 2 weeks. I'm going to try to put out some interviews during that time, and hopefully when I get back, we're going to do 2 shows a week where I'm doing an interview live and also doing this nightly, supposed to be on Sunday show called Strange Normal, and talk more about this. But stay tuned for that, because we might not have our Strange Normal live show because I have to have pre-recorded stuff for the GC session. And if you want, let me know in the comments. I'm going to do some updates about what's going on in the GC session, and maybe some interviews as well while we're there. If that would be interested, if you'd be interested in that, let me know in the comments. All right, let's continue with his what he's talking about here.
So I guess I need to hear from you. I get a sense, obviously, of what they are. What are they?
If I told you I knew for sure, I'd be lying.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that this is a door there that we didn't know the door was there. Now we know the door is there, and that door is cracked open a tiny bit, and out of there is a little light come. But what's behind that door, we don't know.
See, I think he's admitting he doesn't really know what this is. And so Ross Coulthart is picking up on this and going, okay, so if you don't know what it is, what do you think is going on here? What is this thing? Well, watch and see what he says.
So what do you say? I mean, one of the things that is a constant reference from people I talk to in defence, and Lou Elizondo has said this publicly to me when he did an interview with News Nation last year about his new book, Imminent. There is a Collins elite. There's a group of people inside the Pentagon and the intelligence community who do genuinely believe that this phenomenon is demonic,
right,
evil.
Right.
Are they wrong?
Yep.
Isn't it possible, though, that, I mean, if you say that there's different types of non-human intelligence that are engaging with us, isn't it possible that some of them aren't very nice?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure where there's good, there's bad. And I think we need to be grounded in, you can attract whatever you want.
But when you say they're not demonic, they're not evil, how do you know?
I'm not saying I think there are demonic entities, but I don't think they're the ones coming in the light. I think the demonic entities possess you in spirit and mind and how, inhabit your soul. You have to exorcise them to get them out of you. But the angels come in the light.
Okay, so now we have an understanding that he has no idea about the Great Controversy. I'm going to try to get him a Great Controversy because this is very interesting. Because if you would just read the Bible. I mean, I should say it that way. He hasn't read the Bible yet. Just read Job. Understand what's going on here. Demons. There isn't. I was with an Uber weeks ago. And the guy said, I'm a pastor. I just moved out here. And so on the side, while I'm getting my church ready, because most churches are small businesses, and you need clients, which are your congregation, and to pay tithe and stuff. And that's not how my church operates. But you still need to have a group of people that is helping you survive. So he says, I'm a pastor. Right now I'm doing Uber as my church starts. And we started talking about spiritualism in the last days, and because it's kind of my wheelhouse. And he's like, well, I believe that demons and fallen angels are different. I was taken aback by this. I was like, well, how in the world? Where do you get that idea? And if you don't rightly divide Scripture, it sounds like that. If you don't understand Revelation and the prophecies of what happened, just out of Revelation, how Satan took a third of the fallen angels, fell, and they're the same thing. Their only difference is the mindset that they have. Same capabilities. It's just one doesn't follow God, and God knows everything, so they follow him to the T, and the other ones don't. They follow and do what they want. And they can't predict what's happening. And so what Bledsoe is saying here is, he can't understand that there is good and bad entities, and he said he has this Hollywood caricature of the devil and his minions in his mind of these things that flop around on the floor and have a little red pointy tail. And they come into you and make you do weird faces and stuff. You can be possessed and not even know it. That's what's amazing to me. You don't have to flop around on the floor or throw yourself in the fire or break chains apart as they do in the Bible. We're going to talk more about that as we interview some of these missionaries from other countries in the next following episodes coming up here pretty soon. It's very interesting stuff. You're going to want to have to see this. But it's sad that Chris Bledsoe doesn't understand that these demons are fallen angels. He says the ones that come in the light are the good ones. Now, is that true? No, it's not. Because all angels have the same ability to be very luminous, shining as lightning. They haven't lost that ability just because they fell to earth. And so that's why the Bible says, test the spirits. We don't really understand that verse today because we don't have to deal with this stuff. But we will very soon. Test the spirits. It doesn't mean to go out there and take a test tube or syringe them or see if they are if they can get the Fauci ouchie or find out if they're human. This means, are they following, do they claim that Christ is God or not? That's, because White says in her writings that there will be new doctrines that come about as these things come. First, they will approve of the churches and say, "Hey, great job, Christianity is doing good," and then they will say, "Oh, by the way, that Christ thing wasn't all it's cracked up to be. In fact, the blood of the covenant is seen as an unholy thing," is what she says. Imagine that, Christ's blood unholy. That's what they're going to claim. I mean, it makes sense too, because if Christ is supposed to appear as God, as if Satan's supposed to appear as Christ, as God, then he's not going to be wanting to be associated with Jesus Christ, which came a long time ago, sinless and perfect. He's going to have his own agenda. We're going to talk. I talk about that in this book. I also have a sermon that I present. If you want to have me at your church to talk about this stuff, I do that. You can get a hold of me, and we can do that. And I've been around the world. It feels like this last month, and talking about this stuff. Really interesting stuff. All right, let's continue on the next clip. The next clip is, and we're winding down. The Divine Mary, the holy being that he thinks is holy, that causes emotion and makes you cry. What is this? Watch.
When you see this divine Mother Mary being, is it a humanoid creature?
Yeah, looks just like a classic Virgin Mary painting that you see of a beautiful young lady, no taller than this, wearing a beautiful white dress, floating off the ground. That's what she looks like.
And what do you feel when you talk to her?
Like I'm in the presence of God or something so divine that I want to cry the whole time. I've been crying 18 years. It makes you cry. Jake says the same thing.
Yeah, Jake's profoundly affected.
Yeah.
I mean, as you saw on the interview I did with him, he
did.
He couldn't hold back
Fantastic.
tears. He told me before we did the interview, he thought he might cry when I made him talk about that. And it was funny because even when we were talking through how we do it, he was actually crying. Even it's such a profoundly emotional event for him. It's like a trauma.
It is a trauma, but it's a beautiful thing. And yeah.
What are their intentions?
I think based on the things that I hear is they don't like the suffering that's going on. They don't like this disease that's going around and all the death and the deception. That was one thing they did not like, was that innocent people being deceived by certain groups of folks. They're deceiving us. They're lying about things.
Boy, that was vague, wasn't it? You know what I think he's talking about there? I think he's talking about Adventist. I really do. Let's listen to that one more time. The very end of that, he's like, well, I don't think they like the disease. And then he kind of stumbles around and says he doesn't like what they're talking about, the deception from some of these folks, these groups. What? Could that be the Collins elite, as they talk about? Or could it be another group? Or could they be one and the same?
They did not like was that innocent people being deceived by certain groups of folks. They're deceiving us. They're lying about things.
Wow. Certain groups are deceiving the folks. In other words, certain groups are telling the truth. They're very unhappy about that. Because you gotta understand that if these things are trying to tell people that they are the truth, and this is the truth about what's happening, and we know that they're demonic, well, then they're lying. It's a lying spirit. So you reverse that and say, by the way, these things are saying that we don't like the truth that people are talking about. All right, and did you catch all the emotionalism in there? These things can push emotion on you. That's one of the weapons of angelic entities. They can make you feel things as well as put things, ideas into your mind. Very careful with that. Entities, they told him that we've lost our direction, even.
Has any of the communications that you've had with any of these beings given you any sense that humanity is screwed?
They told me that we had lost our direction, and if they didn't come in and help, we were going down a path of destruction and Armageddon. That's what they told me. They showed two timelines. We can go down the war machine into oblivion, or we can decide to go up into peace.
But is there any certainty about which timeline it will be?
I don't know. I just relaying what they told me. But, I wish I had those answers.
Now, let me be the skeptic for a moment and put my hat on. You're a deeply religious man, and there's nothing wrong with that. We respect your right to worship.
Right.
Is it possible you're seeing perfectly natural phenomena through a prism of deep religiosity?
If it's responding to prayer, then I believe it's a divine.
And I have to admit, I have the voices of at least a dozen people in my head who've told me privately that they have witnessed and corroborated in person with you that they've seen this phenomenon.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to hear that and be skeptical still.
Yeah, right. It's real, and you and I are going to experience it together.
I'd love to, yeah. But I think I'd like the public to experience it. How hard is it for people to have this experience? How hard would it be for any citizen to attract the phenomenon?
Anybody can do it. It is all a matter of ridding yourself from the doubt. If you, let me just say this about our skeptic friends. They just don't know. But that skepticism will rob you of ever experiencing this. Because if you're afraid, they won't come. And if you're skeptical, they won't come.
So it really is a matter of accepting and showing faith.
Yes, yes.
Well, Chris, you've really committed yourself.
It's okay.
2026.
I think that's going to mark a shift into a new awakening, a new knowledge, and it'll take a while. It's not like a light bulb flipping tomorrow and something major happening, but I think the public's going to become aware of a lot of stuff.
And how are they going to become aware of a lot of this stuff? Well, the way they're going to become aware of all that stuff is that he said that when disaster comes upon the world, they'll come in and stop it. So that's where the war is going. And that's what this episode is about. How does the war tie into this whole thing? Well, apparently, by this time next year, we're going to know that. So keep your hats on. Keep your nose in the Bible. I don't know what else to say, folks. This has been wild. Maybe I'll do a little report on his book. Or maybe I don't want to read it at all. I don't know. Give me a comment. Let me know what you thought. What was the most convincing aspect when you realized that this whole thing was the truth? Was it Roger Morneau's testimony? Was it the fact that this thing is so tied into Egyptian mythology? Was it the fact that, or just all these things together? What was it that was the most interesting and that convinced you, okay, this is demonic and this is part of Bible prophecy? And maybe it was that quote that talks about where she says, spirits from other world, the world of the spirits. and they present themselves as beings from other worlds. What is it? What is it that convinced you? What is the most interesting part about this whole thing? That helps me. It's feedback to me to help me know what do you want to hear about more on this channel and understand. Because we're going to be expanding a little bit. We're going to be talking about more of this stuff, but it's going to still revolve around the strangeness that happens in your normal life, which is strange normal. And for some reason, I updated the credits and my audio is not working. So let's pray, and then we'll close out. Father God, thank you so much for this time we get to spend thinking about this stuff, focusing on you and understanding what is happening here. Guide us today as we go along, and this week as we go about our normal tasks. Help us to realize the errors, keep the demonic entities away from us, and help us to grow in you and bring many people to heaven with us. Forgive us for our sins. And take those habits away from us. We love you, God. Amen. And that's not the right button. Well, apparently it's not working. Oh, we're starting again. Just kidding. I don't know what's going on anymore, but apparently I'm supposed to hit the credits button, and that was supposed to work flawlessly, so I'm going to go to my main video section and just hit it. Let's see, will this work? Nope. Folks, we're going to have to go without credits tonight, but I wanted to tell you guys that this has been perfectly strange. Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. This has been Strange Normal, and I want to see you guys back here again very soon. Have a good night.